Welcome to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby. I'm the host, Zibby Owens. I am an author. My latest is Blank, pub date March 1st, a novel. I'm also a podcaster, obviously, a publisher, a bookstore owner, and so much more. If you love books, you're in the right place. In fact, we call it the Zibbyverse, or really, the LA Times called it the Zibbyverse, and we're going with it. Go to zibbyowens.com to learn more and follow me on Instagram at ZibbyOwens. Rebecca Serle is back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss Expiration Dates, a novel. Rebecca is the New York Times bestselling author of One Italian Summer, In 5 Years, The Dinner List, and the young adult novels The Edge of Falling and When You Were Mine. Rebecca also developed the hit TV adaptation Famous in Love based on her YA series of the same name. She is a graduate of USC and the New School and lives in Los Angeles with her husband. I met Rebecca through our mutual friend, Sarah Mlynowski, who is, by the way, the same person who suggested I start a podcast. Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for coming back on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss expiration dates. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. There are so many things that I enjoyed about this book, but the LA references were fabulous. I'm like, okay, now I'm at Tower Bar. Like, as I read it here in New York, it's so nice because I feel like I'm actually out there with like the palm trees on the cover and all the landmarks and the hot spots. And anyway, so thank you. Thank you for that.
I know we inadvertently have some like Beverly Hills Hotel colors going on with the pink and the green, even though there are no scenes that actually take place there. But yes.
It's just the general vibe.
It's general vibe, yes. And I really wanted this to not be a beach cover because it's really not about, I mean, there's a little bit in Malibu, but it's really about the city of Los Angeles, which I think is not a thing that people always necessarily associate with work about LA. I think it can be a lot about that beach. And this is really about like the town in a way. So
yes. Awesome. I almost like never go to the beach there. I don't know. Anyway.
I never go to the beach. I mean, I live in West Hollywood where a large section of this book takes place where our narrator lives. And I mean, I never go. Before I was married, I have a really dear friend who lives in Malibu and I would go out there a lot of weekends and I would spend time out there. But now I have a husband and I don't get to do that stuff anymore.
You're like, see ya, I'm taking off from Malibu. Have a nice day. Okay. Expiration Dates. Tell us what it's about, please.
Expiration Dates is about Daphne Bell. She is a young woman in her 30s that since the time she was a kid, every time she meets a man, she receives a slip of paper with his name and a number on it. And that number is the exact amount of time they will be together. Our book opens with Daphne receiving a slip of paper that just has a name and the time is blank. And so it's really a question of what that means.
It's amazing. Such a great concept. And then it lends itself so well to these excerpts not excerpts, but chapters about each relationship that came before and how long and what was on the card. And it's so clever, the whole packaging.
There's an episodic element, like you were saying, to the book, but I never want that to feel like anecdotal in a way, because I feel like then you're just skipping through and you don't care. So all of the chapters that are just about her past loves are revealing something about her and who she is and why she's single and like the way she deals with that, which was very true of my life too.
I didn't think no, they didn't come across as skipping. I was just saying it's a great way to structure the story because you go back. I don't know. It's just, I didn't mean, they're not like, parentheses on the side. No, it's like this, it is the story.
It's a fun way to structure the story. And also my books are so, a lot of times the main story is like pretty slender, what you're trying to say between two people. And so I think it helps broaden out the world and just give you a sense of who this woman is, because the story of who she is found like both in the relationship that you see her having throughout the book, but also in the relationship she's had in the past and how she's gotten to that place.
So have you were doing a deep dive into your own past relationships? Is that where this came from?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there's a lot of hallmarks of certain kinds of relationships. There's a chapter in here that's titled Stewart that like really, I mean, I guess I hope not. I hope won't resonate with women because it's kind of terrible. But there are a lot of just markers of different kinds of men and different kinds of relationships in here, certainly that I experienced and that I think most people do if you're single for a long time. I was almost 37 when I met my husband. So I had been out there a lot. And I think the book reflects a lot of a lot of the chapters of my own life too.
I like the guy in Paris on the work trip.
That was fun.
I'm like, this is kind of enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some wish fulfillment too. And I definitely got to have a little bit of revisionist history with my own life, because fiction gets to be the most realized version of things. A lot of times in real life, it's not really that like complete pinnacle. And so it was fun to get to go back and go in my memory bank and play with different relationships. And then also just like, make them really, really fruitful in a way that they probably weren't in my own life.
Well, I feel like now your books are developing certain themes and characteristics. Like, do you feel like that too? Like, this is, it has to something not otherworldly. That's not the right way to say it, but that there's just something like that wouldn't necessarily happen, and it all has to do with love and the way things should be, and the universe in a way, right? It's like.
Yeah. Completely. I mean, there's always a little bit of magical realism in there. Something that's happening that's outside the norms or the boundaries of our own plane of existence. Like she gets notes in this one, and One Italian Summer, she obviously like meets her mother, who's not alive and not 30. But I really I just think the question, and I think you and I talked about this probably when we met for in 5 years. The question that I'm really interested in life is, what do we control? How much is in our control, and how much is just going to happen regardless of the choices we make? And what's the relationship between those things? I mean, I think I struggle a lot in my own life being like, is this in my control? Is this because of something I've done? Like, what is the role of fate and what is the role of free will, and how do we determine which is which? And so I think all of my books in a way are trying to explore that. I think it's probably like a pretty unanswerable question.
That's good. Then you won't run out of material.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think there's plenty for me still to ask about that. But that's really, I think we write, obviously I'm not the first writer to say this, like we write to figure out how we feel about our lives and about the world. And that is the thing that I'm just constantly wrestling with. So it shows up in all of my work.
Do you feel that you're approaching love stories differently being in love?
What's so interesting is, so this book I wrote right before I met my husband. I wrote and this is in the acknowledgments at the end of the book, but I wrote my editor, Lindsay Sagnet, and I said to her, I really want, I think I'm ready to really write my book about looking for love. I always knew that I wanted to write it, but I couldn't really figure out how the story was going to end because it hadn't ended for me. And I didn't know, what's the answer? Who do you end up with? What's the message? What am I trying to say to women? What am I trying to say to myself? And so I just felt like, I'm just going to write it. I don't know how it ends, but I'm going to write it. And I wrote her and I said, I think I need to do this. And I think if I write it true, he'll be there at the end of it. And that's exactly what happened. I wrote it. And then 3 months later, I met him. But your question is interesting because my books, even though some of my characters have been partnered, my books in a lot of ways have been about looking forward and sort of like that search. Mm-hmm. What's going to be? Who am I going to become? Who am I going to end up with? And now that I'm with someone, and in all of the complexities that marriage brings, and I think that it's very real. I mean, I don't have to say that to anybody who's married. It's not just the challenges of partnership, but it's also like all of the real world things that come when you choose somebody to be in life with. Mm-hmm. It's their family, it's your family, it's aging parents, it's we were just talking about before we got on, it's endless house renovations. All life becomes very about the details and very about the concrete. And I think that my work is starting, not so much expiration dates, but I think my work going forward is really starting to reflect that. What does it mean to not be out there in the search anymore, but be here dealing with what has come?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And hopefully not wondering about other ways life could have gone.
Yeah, exactly. What does it mean to really just be present with this thing that is?
Yes. I know.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. The universe and life.
The universe and life. Small things.
Can I ask how you met your husband? It's not even remotely related to this book.
Yeah, absolutely. So we met on Coffee Meets Bagel, which is a dating app. But what was really funny is I saw his picture and I was like, he looks really familiar. And again, I was 36 years old. I was like, I asked him, I said, have we been out before? And he said, no, we haven't. And so I was like, okay, well, what's your last name? Because it gives you a first name. And he told me his last name, and I taped it into my email, and we had actually met. We hadn't met, excuse me. We had emailed 6 years before when the app introduced us, and we had emails back and forth to each other. I was out in Los Angeles making Famous in Love, my television show. But I was still really living in New York. I was sort of just like moonlighting as somebody who was sometimes in LA. And so we had emailed back and forth, and he was like, we should get together. And I just never responded to his last email because I think I went back to New York, and, he lived in LA. And so he always says to me, you ghosted me. And like he said to me before, we missed those 6 years. We could have had them. And the truth is, we really couldn't have, because he had just broken up with somebody who was in New York and who never wanted to leave New York. And I, at the time, was like, I was never going to leave New York. That was the only place to live on the planet. Anyone who left was crazy. And so, you think about these moments where you come together, and the universe, speaking of, is like, not quite now, like not quite now. And what I say to him when he sort of like bemoans the fact that we quote unquote lost that time together, what I say is like, but isn't it beautiful to know that the things that are meant to be become, like they become anyway, like it wasn't 6 years ago, it was now. But isn't it incredible to know that it's now, that still the things that are meant to be, they find a way. So yeah, that's us.
That gives me goosebumps. I love that. Look at that, turning it all into great coffee.
Coffee. Everything is coffee. Everything is coffee. I know. My poor husband, I was talking to him about something I'm currently working on. And I was like, hey, I just wanted to tell you, like, happy marriages are just like not really interesting in fiction. You know that, right? And he was like, uh-huh. And I was like, so like, the things that I'm going to write about, it's not how I feel about us or anything that like I would do. It's just the realities of fiction. He's like, uh-huh. But it is true. You start to, the work changes a little bit. My books, it's no secret, you and I have talked about it, that my books are very personal to my life. And so, and they've also been sort of, I hesitate to use the term semi-autobiographical because that's not true, but they're mirroring in some way the life stage that I'm in, and like the core relationships I have. So like In 5 Years was really about a time in my life where the women in my life, my friends, were my primary partnership. And then, One Italian Summer is about my love story with my mom and that sort of familial love. And so I now am starting to write about what it means to be with somebody. And, it's a different process because you want to be truthful to the world and to your art. That is important. That is like the reason that I'm on this planet. I have to be. But also I have this man who I love so much and who is such a sweet and tender person. And it starts to become kind of interesting where the lines blur when you're inventing things about a relationship that isn't true in your own. But of course, the relationship in the book is going to have elements of your own because you're writing it honest. And part of that is the, like we were talking about, is all of the details of what make up a marriage. So I'm finding that process to be interesting. I mean, he's wonderful. And he's like, write whatever you want. Like you write novels, not memoirs, but it's a different process. It's interesting.
Yeah. I guess cling to the idea that whatever you write, the most important thing is protecting your marriage. It's more important than any book.
For sure.
And any plot. And,
yes.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to put this in, but it's really like, I don't know, some sort of secret about that.
Yes.
No one will know who it's really about. I know who it is. But then it's like, well, the person who reads it will know that I've betrayed the secret. So isn't that just as bad, even if nobody else does?
Yeah.
I don't know, but towing the line.
Very interesting.
What is going on with all of the film project? Like what's going on in that part of the world for you?
Well, these things are just starting to come back up because we were in, there was a strike. Yeah. Hollywood was on strike. For anyone who doesn't know, the writers were on strike. The actors were on strike. It was resolved last month, maybe a few weeks ago. And so things are just kind of starting to come back into the fold, and we're in process on both In 5 Years and One Italian Summer. Hopefully they start to move forward. I think that they're both films. They're both really interesting projects with really wonderful producers attached. So hopefully those begin to move forward. And then I'm just endlessly and ever in like a a battle with the dinner list script. Like it was a movie and then it was a show and then it was a movie and I'm writing it and I'm constantly trying to like figure out what this thing is. It really is my like white whale, that particular script. So we'll see. We'll see.
Do you have any time to read or do anything work related that's fun?
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, what do I do? That's fun. Well, I just got married, so that was fun. And I was like planning that wedding and then the house reno. But I have been reading. My husband actually likes to read right before bed. So I've gotten in the routine of doing that with him. And I also started a book club this year, which I absolutely love. Cannot recommend it enough to all of your listeners. If you're thinking about starting a book club, it will be one of the best things you do this year. I love it. I just pulled people from totally different areas of my life. And we're not all writers by any stretch, and which is great because I just want the point of the book club to be, let's just talk about whether we liked it or not. Mm-hmm. And that's it, So it's really fun. And we read this month, actually we meet tonight. We read It Ends With Us, Colleen Hoover's book. And then we're reading like a lot of popular fiction. Last month we read Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. That was great. I loved. So yeah, I've noticed that the book club is making me read a lot more. Because there's that set book, I finish it pretty early on into the month, and then I'm like, oh right, reading's great.
And is it online or in person?
In person. We're very strict in person only book club. So much stuff happens online. It's wonderful. Like it's great that you can be in New York and in LA. We can do this, but it's nice in person. Are you in a book club? I mean, I know you do 7,000 things related to book, but are you?
No, I'm only the only book club I'm in is my own book club, and I pick the books. So I've already read them when I pick them. But then we do get together, but it's on Zoom, and then we talk.
Oh, you do? You have a meeting? Oh,
we have a meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
We talk for 30 minutes, and then the author comes for 30 minutes.
That's really nice. I love it. I love it.
Is anyone welcome in your book club?
Yeah, but you have to live here, so you have to be able to, you got to be able to like. No, but
people who are listening and live in LA, they can just be a part of your book club?
Maybe. We're a pretty small group. Here's what I'll say. We are looking for, this is what I'll say. We are looking for other members. We're looking for other members, but we're very serious. Like you can't miss 2 in a row. Otherwise you get kicked out of the book club. Like there's a lot we rotate hosts. So every month we go to like somebody different and they host. Tonight I'm hosting, and it's Ugly Sweater Book Club because it's December. So we're pretty strict. Like you have to, because the truth is, sorry, we're totally getting off topic here.
That's right.
This is what I will say. The truth is you really have to be able to commit to extra curricular things that you want to do. Otherwise it's not worth it. Like having a book club where people like come once every 6 months and have a glass of wine and no one's read the book. Like I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Let's have read the book. Let's come together. Let's commit to like one night, once a month. But you'd be surprised how hard that is for people.
It's hard. No, well, I mean, everybody has their own obligations and all that.
Exactly. Totally. But I'm like, so yeah. So if you're serious and you really want to be a part of our book club, DM me. We are looking for members, but you got to be serious.
Wow. Okay. Heated. Advice heated or whatever. So, and you're also in this like secret writing club too, right?
Secret writing club? I don't know. That sounds fancy. I mean, what I will say is that I lived in New York for a very long time, and all of my writer friends were in New York. Like that's where we all lived. It's where we all met. And then I moved in 2019, and a few of my author friends moved with me. And then COVID just brought everyone out. So we do have a really nice circle and a really nice group and dynamic out here. And it's really, really, really nice to have other authors that I can see on a weekly basis here. So that's special. It's funny, like it was our whole group in New York, and now it's our whole group out here. It's wonderful how that worked out.
That's great. So how long do books usually take you? Like a year? Like how long does the first draft take you?
The first draft is quick, but I turn on a concept for a really long time. So I think I had the idea for this book maybe in like late 2020, around the time that I was finishing One Italian Summer. And I said to my agent, who I absolutely adore, I told her the idea, and she's like, I don't know, like how exactly would that work? And I'm not sure. And I was like, yeah, maybe it's garbage. I don't know. And I thought about it. And then I wrote Expiration Dates. And then, I wrote One Italian Summer. This is Expiration Dates. And then I came back to it in 2021, and I sort of figured out all of my books, and I don't think like I'm not trying to make this a hallmark of what I do, because my goal is to keep evolving and changing. Like, I don't know if I'll always write magical realism. I don't know if, because I would hope that my books keep evolving as I do and as I grow as a person and as a writer. So who knows? But my last 4 novels have had some kind of midway twist. And that twist is really like the why. It's what the book is really about with a capital A. I like to say, like, why this story? So once I realized what that twist was, then I started writing, and then the writing process is really quick. I would say probably like 3 or 4 months.
Wow. That's great.
But it takes a long time to get to that place. Like, it takes a long time of turning it to be like, what's interesting about this story? Why this woman? What's going on with her? And then once I figure it out, then it's a pretty quick process. I'm writing a book right now, actually, that is taking longer, and I find it much harder because you take like some time off, and then getting back into it is really challenging because you're like, wait, where was I? And have I said that before? And what's his relationship with her? And so, do you tend to draft pretty quickly when you write? Do you like to like stay in step, or it just depends?
It's really hard. If I had nothing else to do, it would be much better to just like take a month or two, and that's all you do.
Yeah.
But no, I'm like, I go and then I come back and I have to reread from the beginning, and I'm like, ugh, I don't have time to reread. Sometimes then I like with my last, like I kept notes. I was like, what did I say about this person? Like, but it's just annoying. But,
and then the time that you reread, you're like, okay, now my writing time's up for the day.
Right. Exactly.
Now I got to leave my computer. So that's why I'm like, that's been my process now because, life. Yeah. And it's harder.
It is harder. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah. That's why people are like, get in the document every day. And then I think about that advice and I'm like, I don't have time. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to get in and be like, I don't remember. I need to go back and fix this, but I don't know.
Like, I know. I get in. I'm like, this is a mess. And then I get out.
I know. I'm like, oh, no. Wrong turn.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So what is your advice for aspiring authors aside from, maybe being better than we are at getting in the doc regularly, or I don't know, not forgetting. Or
Definitely
putting your life on hold or something.
Right. The writing part is important. I mean, my advice would be read as much as you can. I always find that when I'm actively reading, I'm more inspired to get into a book, and that I actually tend to read more when I'm actively writing than when I'm not, because I feel like I'm in the universe of words, and so I think that's really helpful. And then yes, consistency is important, but setting. Oh, here's what I will say. This is what I do. This is what I have done previously when I'm drafting. So listen to my advice on that, not on what I'm currently doing now.
Okay.
But I used to, on my previous novels, write 2,000 words a day, which for this current moment in my life is too many, but let's say 500. Okay. Let's say 500 words a day. Make it 500. Don't make it 499 and don't make it 502. Make it 500, because what happens is when you end a day's work in the middle of a thought, it's much easier to come back to the page the next day. Actually, you can, like, most of the time you end up ending in the middle of a sentence. So like when you come back to the page the next day, it's a lot easier to complete a sentence than it is to start a new paragraph or to start a new chapter or to start a new scene. So my advice really is to leave off the day's work midway, because the next day it's easier to pick up. That's my number one piece of advice for people who are looking for drafting advice.
Okay, good to know. I feel like you need to teach one of our Zibby classes about fiction writing. What do you think?
Yeah, that trick is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should do it more right now, but
Well, Rebecca, it's been so fun. I mean, we met so long ago, not so long. I mean, right when we were in LA, and I've watched like all these books of yours come out. It's been so exciting. I'm so grateful. Sarah Mlynowski originally connected us, and I'm just like so rooting for you. It's so exciting.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all your support. I love seeing you. Yeah, I mean, I remember our In 5 Years chat, which was March 10th of 2020.
Oh my gosh, that one. Yeah, because you were here. That's right, with Ariel.
I was here with Ariel, and we were all sort of, I mean, I was like going on a 14-city book tour, and we were all just staring at each other like, is this what's happening? And of course, we all know what happened next. But
I literally left. I left town that night. Like that afternoon is when we were like, we're pulling the cord here.
Yeah, you were like, we're leaving. And I was like, me too, to go to Boston and talk to 200 people. Like, I was like, what's happening? And it was crazy and wild. But I always think about that little touchstone in such an odd time. And so it's really nice to see you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. All right. Hopefully nothing bad will happen after this.
All good things. All good things from here on out. All good things from here on out.
All right. All right. Bye, Rebecca.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.